In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness warnings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Ange Davis. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it. Hello friends, welcome to the show. Today's guest is my friend Candice Harvey, and we are going to be talking about a topic that does not nearly get enough airtime in my opinion, and I feel like we talk a lot about mums in the workplace and parenting in the workplace, but I think that we rarely talk about people's experience who don't have children in the workplace and ways that that can be of benefit but also of challenge. And I think both conversations are really important. Not that one is more important than the other, but I do think we need to showcase what it's like to be a child-free person in the workplace. I think a lot of people assume that it means more freedom, more money, fewer responsibilities. But like every life decision, there are trade-offs. And I think there can also be judgment, assumptions, shifting relationships, questions around identity, purpose, and even moments of grief or uncertainty. And I don't think we talk about those often enough. So like I said, it's not about whether one path is the right path. Everyone's life choices are valid. It's really about understanding ways to build a meaningful life and that every path comes with privileges and challenges. So, my dear friend Candice Harvey, who is also child-free, we're going to talk about what life looks like, not having kids, navigating life, navigating the workforce. I'm so excited to talk to you about this today, Candice. Welcome, and I'd love you to intro yourself to the Work and Wellness audience.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, my friend. As you know, I am so excited to have this conversation. I don't know how long you and I have been talking about, but this has been like, I think when we first met, we were like, this could be a good thing to talk about, hey?
Yep. Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while, and I think it's important to share other
Absolutely.
voices.
Yeah, let's do it. So to introduce myself, I am 40 years young. I recently moved back to the Sunshine Coast with my spunk of a husband. I absolutely love being closer to the beach. I also love my decaf flat whites with oat milk, just so that everyone knows my coffee order. Real friendships is super, super important to me these days, as you know, Ange, but having those real big, deep chats is so important, but also I love shaking people up. So I started my own business in 2018. I am a speaker, I'm a workshop facilitator, and prior to being a business owner, similar to you, my friend, I worked in HR for 15 years where I helped companies manage their people, and now I help people manage themselves. So by shaking up their thinking, and if we're, thinking differently, we're behaving differently, and if we're behaving differently, we are getting different results. So that is me.
Important work, I think. We all need a shake-up from time to time. I know you give me shake-ups regularly in the best possible way. We're going to tackle this episode a little differently today. I'm going to ask a question or pose a question, and I want both of us to answer the question. I think there might be some things that we have similar views on, some things we might have different views on, and so it's really just around an open conversation about the topic. But I do want to start with you, and I'd love to know, was choosing not to have children something that you've always known, or is it a decision that you arrived to over time?
Yeah. So I don't actually ever remember Ange wanting to be a parent. And I've had this conversation even with my mum before as well, who I think, bless her little cotton socks, it did take her a while to get her head around the fact of, oh my gosh, she's really never going to have children. I think that's a very different sort of topic altogether, but it was a big deal, I think, for mum to get her head around that. But I know for a lot of friends that I have, they just always wanted to be a mum. Like I know a lot of people where it wasn't even a conversation. It was just a given. But I don't ever remember that being the case for me. I was also not anti it. Like it wasn't like they're revolting and I never ever want to have a child. It wasn't like that. It honestly just was never on my radar as something that I wanted from this one life of mine. And it wasn't until I met my husband, who is 13 years older than me, and he has 2 kids and they're grown-up kids now. I really felt when I met him that I kind of had to make a choice. Like, do I actually want to have them or do I not? Knowing that if we were going to have them, he would then go through it all for another round, So it was sort of like, I don't think he was that keen on doing that, but it was definitely a conversation that we could have. And I remember having to really think about it, like a topic that I hadn't given too much airtime before. And I was like, no, and I remember promising myself and also speaking to my husband about it. I was like, if I ever change my mind, I'm always going to be really honest with you, which I think he took a big gulp and was like, let's hope that never happened. But it's happened once in the whole time that we've been together over the last 10 years where I thought, oh God, I think I do. And then I was like, no, just joking, I don't. But yeah, it's just never been something that I've wanted to do. And I love my decision as well. Tell me yours, babe. What's your sitch?
I never wanted kids growing up. Like I was, never the person who, I never even thought I'd get married, if I'm honest, Candice. I was never the person who really played with dolls. I always joke because my dad built cars. Like I had Barbie Ferrari, not Barbie Dreamhouse. You know what I mean? Like I was always like doing something a bit different. And then Liam and I both said to each other we didn't want kids. And then we moved up to the Northern Rivers, and I don't know what it was. And I reflect back a little bit wondering if it was, I don't want to say peer pressure, but sort of being surrounded by a lot of young families and people having kids, thinking, oh, do we want to do this? And then we tried for kids and it didn't happen for us. And we were like, we've got a pretty bloody good life. So let's just keep living that and have fun and leave a legacy in a different way, which is important to us to, impact the world while we're here and think about the legacy we leave when we go. But I feel also very happy with the decision. I don't ever regret it. There was that little moment of trying, and I don't know what sort of changed our mind for that period there, because we both didn't want them for a really long time. So I don't know if it was, you're often quite influenced by your surroundings. Yeah. And so I don't know if it was that. I don't know if it was age or life stage. I'm not sure. But I feel very good about the decision now, and I really love my life. And I also think, for me, it's funny, one of my friends has 4 kids and she's like, you know what I didn't consider before I had 4 kids? That I really like quietness and life is not quiet. I was like, that's a fair assessment.
That is a lot, isn't it? That's a lot.
Yeah. So, and I think, it's good to normalize different ways of coming to different decisions as well. Nothing is linear in life. And so, I think that's really important. I'd love to know for you, though, having made that decision, what do you think people misunderstand most about women who choose not to have children?
Oh, that we hate children?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
I actually think that's just it, I talk about this in my book as well, actually, because I think that some people honestly think they can't talk to me about kids, or that the topic of kids will bore me. And I see some of my friends with kids do that, where they get a little bit like, oh God, we need to stop talking to Candice. She doesn't like this topic. She doesn't have kids. She doesn't like kids. But it's honestly not the case at all. Like I love kids. I have an 8-year-old niece and I absolutely love her crazy face off, but I just don't want to keep one, I want to be able to return her. I want to go back to my incredibly quiet life. Let's hope that your friend with 4 kids is not listening to this, but I enjoy that. I enjoy my own time and my own space and all that, but I definitely don't hate kids. I think that's what people can assume. You don't have them, so you hate them. That's not true.
Yes, that is probably my biggest one as well. One of my dearest friends, when she had kids, she thought we weren't going to be friends anymore because she thought I didn't like kids. And I'm like, no, I like kids. It doesn't mean I don't want to still be friends with you.
Yeah.
But I actually, interestingly, I have a bit of a different take in that I don't want to only talk about people's kids.
Oh, neither.
And so
Yeah.
I think I obviously want to hear about them and how they're going. That's a part of their life. But I'm also really interested in my friend as a person, not just as a mum or just about the kids. And I want to talk about what they're doing, how they're feeling, what is interesting to them. And I think sometimes my experience has been in, when you're with certain groups, and it might be when, kids are a certain age, I'm not sure, where that is the only topic. And if I'm honest, this might be controversial, I find it very boring only to talk about that.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people who actually feel the same. And I mean, it's hard because we don't really know because we aren't the people in the group with the kids. But sometimes I think that I could be just getting a little bit up myself, that it's refreshing when they spend time with people like us without kids because it's an excuse not to have to talk about the kids. Like I remember my mum actually and mum and dad like really were not the type of people to talk about their kids at all, which you could look at and go, that's a bit rude. But I think mum sort of looked at it like the kids were actually the least interesting thing about her life, where there was so many other things that she wanted to talk about that she didn't always want to talk about, what they're eating, when they're sleeping. Like that was just, she'd talk to dad and that was kind of enough. But I mean, I'm the same, but I think also, Ange, it's with anything, right? I think that, you and I, obviously we have our own businesses. So you and I could talk about that until the cows come home because it's something that we love. We're both interested in it. So that just works. And it's the same, I think, with mums, and it's why there are mothers groups. And it's like where I see a lot of my friends with kids, how they spend a lot of time with other friends with kids because they want to keep talking about it and feel like they can, and it's just about that awareness. I think that, yes, I can talk about kids and I love that you have a kid and I love that you've chosen to be one and you've got this cute little munchkin that follows you around everywhere. However, there gets to a point where I don't want to talk about it anymore. I need to change the channel a little bit.
Yeah. And I think in the same way, I wouldn't talk to friends who don't have businesses for hours on end about running a business.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. It's just a different topic. I want to touch a bit more on that though, because I'd love to know if being child-free has ever made you feel isolated or disconnected from either your community or from friends who you were friends with who've then become parents.
Yeah, 100%, Ange. Like I actually find this really tough, I mean, I do tend in general to live my life quite differently to most people. And I make a joke of that all the time, but I truly love the way that I live my life. But, I did a post on it recently. I haven't drunk alcohol in 3.5 years. I eat a vegan diet. I don't have a pet and sorry, Ange, cover your ears. I don't want one, right? I don't want one. Sorry, pet lovers. Like I'm not a bad person. I don't go around kicking dogs or anything. I don't want one. But I don't drink caffeine and I also don't have kids, So I feel like the way that I live my life, I put myself in this minority group. There's not a lot of people that I meet they can tick all those boxes of the way that I choose to live my life, which means that it can be a little bit harder to find your people, like it can be a little bit isolating. It can feel really quite lonely. And I have gone through patches in life where I'm like, oh God, I feel like my husband and I are the same. I mean, he has kids, so he's sort of not even the same to me. But in other ways, it's like we're the same. And then everyone else, I feel very different to how other people are living their life, which is why when I met someone like you, I was like, oh my God, never leave me. I love you. This is so exciting, right? Because we get to say same after every sentence, usually when we talk, which I love. But it does feel very rare. And I think even you mentioned like when one of your friends getting a little bit upset with the fact that, they're having a baby. And so then the friendship is going to change. It does change. Like it does. It can't actually stay the same. And I think as weird as it is, but I have to be really honest with this, every single time I've had a friend for the very first time tell me that they are pregnant, I get really sad, like I do congratulate them and I'm genuinely, I'm not just saying it, I'm happy for them because they're happy, but then I will drive away or I'll get off the phone or I'll do something and I have burst into tears sometimes. I have felt that real, like that gut feeling of like, oh my gosh, like this is different now. My friend is not who they were. They've got a very different chapter of life that they're going through. And we rebuild and sometimes we don't, in all honesty. Sometimes friendships have gone in different directions. But I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't lonely sometimes, and I'd also be lying if I didn't think it was sad for me every time someone does announce that they're pregnant, because it's a different way that I live my life as well.
It's so true, isn't it? And I think something that just came up for me then, I was trying to reflect sort of on my friendships. And I think it is, when, you've got friends with kids, I think it's really important that there's another part of that friendship where you feel like you have a connection about something. So if I think about the friends that I'm really sort of close with, it's also those friends who either own a business or they founded something, or, so there's that part where there's that really deep connection, even if there isn't sort of the kid connection, if that makes sense. And I think that's where, we sort of lean into. It's funny, quite a few of my friends actually say to me, my kids are the least interesting thing about me. I love them. And I'll always check in. Of course, I want to know how your kids are. And I love your kids. And I'm super happy to spend time with them. But it's just also, what are the other things we talk about? And so it's being able to connect on that level, I think, is really important. And if I reflect on maybe some of the friendships that have fizzled out, they're the ones where there wasn't any of that stuff, like that we don't have a connection on the way we run our business. Maybe we don't have a values alignment, and I'm also not a mum now, and so I don't feel like I just want to do everything on someone else's terms all the time. I get to do things on my terms too, so I think sometimes it can feel like that a little bit, which I get. People are in a different season of life, and I can't even imagine what it's like having to be the sole two people who are tending to this living thing that needs you to
something
survive.
alive, Ange, like keeping it alive, Whoa.
Yeah, I know. And, you can leave a dog at home by itself. You cannot do that to a child,
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I would love to know, one of the things, particularly when Liam and I decided to have kids and then decide not to have kids, I was studying psychology at the time and thinking a lot about, I was doing the psychology of human development. So it was quite timely. And one of the big reasons that people have kids is for purpose and legacy, whether it's conscious or not. That is a human sort of need. And one of the big things for me was, okay, how do I make sure I have purpose and legacy in my life if it's not sort of, kids and family? So where do you find your purpose, and what are your thoughts on legacy?
Even as you were just saying that just then, I remember, and it probably hasn't been in the last couple of years, but it probably was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I remember having patches in my life where I would actually think to myself, I understand why people have kids. This could be absolutely controversial. I have no idea if everything coming out of my mouth could really trigger people, but let's just pretend we're in a completely safe space and it's coming with love. Absolutely. But the feeling of like people would have kids because it instantly generates purpose. Right? Like if you have a kid and you, like we were just talking about, you have to get up every day and you have to help this little human to be the best human that they can be, and either get them ready or support them or take them somewhere. Like that is your purpose. And I remember thinking, like, if you take that away, which is what the life is that I have, you have to create your own purpose. Like you have to really be able to try a little bit harder, put a lot more effort in, because you get to the end of your life and parents get to say, I was a parent, and there are so many people that I have heard them being interviewed when they ask the question, what is the thing that you are most proud of? What is the most successful thing in your life? And they literally say being a parent, raising a child. And it's, okay, take that away, then what? Like what comes next? Like what is it? What else is it that you get to say? So it was interesting that you said that, because I remember finding that a real thing that I used to play with, where I was like, it'd be so much easier to feel like I had purpose if I had a kid. But now the way that I answer that question now, where do I find my sense of purpose? It is truly through impact. Like that is it for me. Making an impact is definitely my purpose, whether I'm, in a team workshop, whether I'm helping people to see things differently, even when I'm connecting with, a friend like you now, Ange, and we get to have the conversations that we have so openly and honestly. I just got goosebumps with thinking about some of the chats that you and I have, but we create impact for each other. We're helping each other to see things differently. And like you said earlier, like I shake you up, you shake me up, but that to me that's the whole point. Really being able to make a difference. And even if it is making people laugh or it's making light out of a stressful situation, creating impact is really important to me. So that's definitely what gets me out of bed for sure.
Yeah, I'm similar to you. I think impact presence and kindness are the things
Love it.
that feel really important to me. So impact
Yeah.
in similar ways that you talk about. I think genuine presence is incredibly important to me in terms of my purpose. And I'm not perfect. Like there are times when I'm like thinking about something else when I should be 100% present. But I think so many of us are not present in life and with people, and people are looking at their phones or their phones are on the table. And so that's really important to me. And just bringing kindness into the world is a really important legacy for me. Some people know I volunteer with like elderly people who like live on their own and don't have family and all of that sort of stuff. And I think, bringing kindness into the world in different ways, I think is really important. And I've got, the capacity to be able to do that. So I think that's really important to me. Do you think being child-free influenced your career and your ability to build a business, either positive or negative?
I think this is a really great question, but it's actually a little bit of a tough one to answer because I don't know any different, if you know what I mean. You know, so it is a little bit tricky, but do I think being child-free has influenced my career? I think people often assume that career success and being child-free are directly connected. I really do think that. Like one enables the other in some sort of deliberate trade-off. And I know you and I love talking about trade-offs, but I don't actually think that's true for me. I think the real connection is more about what I choose to prioritize with my time and my energy rather than children simply not fitting into the picture. Like I really look at my life and I'm like, kids could fit into my life.
Yeah.
Like they absolutely could. Like that, it's not really a barrier for me. Like I am not the sort of person who works until crazy o'clock. Like I close my laptop down, my brain stops working. Like my laptop is down at like 5 o'clock or when my husband walks in the door and that's it. Like so children could be there. And I would be available. It's not like I'm this workaholic. Absolutely not, which I think some people might think if you don't have children, you can just, have this crazy sort of different schedule. But I think what being child-free has given me is, and this, again, I just keep thinking of your friend who has 4 kids. I also have a friend who has 4 kids, but it's given me more space. More time for myself and also for my husband. So, I think that I'm not chasing growth for the sake of growth. That's not the sort of person I am, or kind of filling every bit of space and hour because there's no one else demanding of my time. But I just don't think that being child-free created my career. I think it's just given me a different shape of my life, like one where I'm just really intentional. I'm so protective over my energy, over my relationships. And it just, I just don't think that I don't let my work expand into all other areas in my life. So
Yes, I agree. I think likewise, I don't have the other perspective. So it's very hard to say the other side. I do wonder if I would have taken the risk to start my own business if if I had kids and, thinking about building generational wealth. I don't have to think about building generational wealth. I talk to Liam about this all the time. There's a lot of old money philosophy around the things that you should do and invest in, and it's all based on being able to leave generational wealth. And we don't have to do that. We can kind of choose what we want to do. And so I wonder if I would have taken the risk. It's a massive risk starting your own business. If I would have taken the risk if I was still thinking about building generational wealth. I don't know. We can never know, right? We never know what the other...
And I look at how both of you are and the relationships that we have with our husbands as well. And it's, the support is absolutely, through the roof, what we get from both of them to be able to do the things that we want to do. And we do it the other way around, like the support that we give them as well. And so I don't know, like I struggle to think like, would it be any different if we had kids where we still have started this business to create the impact? I mean, both you and I came from HR careers as well. So we saw what was missing. And I don't know if we could have not done that. But this is just a fun game to kind of go through because we don't really. We
don't know the other side, right? So I mean, I do want to touch on something you sort of just mentioned there, though, is that and again, I don't know the other side, but I do believe Liam and I have such a strong relationship because it's our number one focus within our household of a relationship.
And you work on it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we have the difficult conversations, you know. I never used to be good at admitting when I was a jerk, you know, and now we're all jerks
And now
from
you're
time
a
to
little
time.
bit better at it. You're a
You know?
little bit better at it, you know?
Yeah, I know. Liam, I did a podcast with Liam and he's like, are you? And I'm like, hey, give me some credit, buddy. You know, but yeah, absolutely we work on it. And I always sort of, and I'm not saying it can't be, but I do think, you know, that is the only relationship in our household. And so it's the absolute priority for us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
I mean,
that is.
I actually love that you said that. But again, going back to my mum and dad used to always say that they come first, as in their relationship with each other was always number one. And I remember growing up and being a bit like, you guys kind of suck for saying that. Like, we are your children. Like, you brought us into the world. We should be your number one priority, because I think that's what you hear on movies, and you see a lot of people, like I said, when they're asked the question of what is the most important, where are they most successful, people typically say kids. But my mum and dad were like, no, it's your dad and I first, mum would say, and then it's you kids. Like, without us sort of working on ourselves and being as happy as we can be, like, we'd be rubbish parents type of thing, you know? So I think that, yeah, I feel like you and I would, if we miraculously had kids, we'd probably be the same. Like, it's relationship first, you know?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I love your parents, by the way. In hearing these sorts of things, was quite progressive, actually, you know, for their time to think that way. Liam and I had a conversation when we were trying for kids and got very clear about the fact that that would always be the case, is that our relationship first and always presenting on the same page. And, you know, of course, things come in. Like, I'm saying this from a perspective of not having it and not having the realities of it, right? So it's very easy to say. But it was a conversation we had about that, you know, that's the priority, because that's also what endures when kids grow up and move out too, you know? So,
100%.
Yeah, I think, I love that. So it's, I love hypothesizing about what it could have been.
I know.
Who knows?
I feel like people are listening to us going, they have no idea. And we don't.
Literally, we don't. We don't.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at least we're clear on that, right? You know, people with kids are like, God, these two, they've got no clue. We don't. Do you think you've ever been negatively impacted, either at work or in business, because you don't have children? So I want to give you a couple of examples. That you can work longer hours, or you're the one that can stay back, or you're the one that can travel or cover holidays or things like that.
Not that it really sticks out or that I've found it unfair in any way, but I'm also, I've never, when I worked in the corporate environment, I've never been really a walkover either, you know? So I think that I've always been pretty honest in all of my jobs that I had throughout my career, as in I would literally say things like, I can't stay back because I'm excited to see my husband tonight. Like, I remember saying that sort of stuff, like, just because I didn't even have a dog to go back to, you know, like people would say that, like, I can't, I've got to get back to the dog, or I've got to get back to the kids, or, you know, my husband's out tonight and I've got to be there for the kids, whatever it was. But I never used to make excuses or lie or dance around any of it. I was always very upfront in all of my jobs, to be like, you know, I can't travel this week. It's my friend's birthday and I've got something locked in. Like, I've always had really great boundaries. I mean, I think they're rock solid now, but they've always been something where, and I think walkover is just the best way to kind of put it. I didn't sort of keep quiet with that sort of stuff. What about you? Did it sort of come up for you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I always sort of had led teams where there were people who had kids and things like that. And I was always like, if you've got to go pick up your kids. And I never held any I never felt any way about it. I was like, that's a human being. You've got to go pick up, go do it. Like, totally fine. I don't hold any resentment about that. And I also feel like in a workplace, it's important to support everyone's needs wherever they are. You know, like, I really believe that. And so, you know, supporting working parents is just as important as supporting someone who's looking after an elderly parent, or has someone who's sick, or whatever's going on. But no, I mean, I'd often be like, guys, I've got to go run home because I'm training for a marathon. So see ya. I've got to run home in the light because otherwise I might get kidnapped. So I can't stay too late. And, you know, I'd pick things up as I needed to. And maybe it didn't bother me that if I couldn't take the school holidays off, I'd always just book leave around it. Like, I've always been the person in negative 10 days leave. Like, I've never accrued leave because I love, you know, traveling and stuff. So No, I don't really feel like it, but I do know I have had conversations with other people who felt like, well, why does that person always get to leave early to pick up their kids?
Yeah.
Or so
Yeah.
I have had conversations with other people who feel that way, but I really have never felt that way. Like I always just think if you're doing a great job, good on you. Make it work for
Yeah.
how you want to work. And it's also up to me to ask for when I need some space
Yep.
and time. It's no one else's job, in my perspective, to recognize that I need to leave early. It's up to me to say, I've got to go for whatever
Totally.
reason.
Yeah, I think we're similar in that way. Even when you were talking about managing a team, though, and obviously, they would have to leave because the child was sick or whatever was going
Yeah.
on, and it kind of did a bit of flashback memories of that too, which I've never really thought about until now. But I remember as well, like managing a team, and it was almost like the fear that they would have on their face, like I'm going to have to go up to Candice, who doesn't have kids, and I'm going to have to let her know that I have to leave or my child's sick, and there would be a little bit of a I'm worried to do this. Like you probably don't understand. And then they have to over sort of explain themselves. And I used to be exactly like you. I was like, no, go. Like,
Yeah.
go.
Fine.
It's not a thing. But I remember them feeling a little bit maybe uncomfortable with, or it would have felt more comfortable if their boss maybe had kids, as opposed to you don't. And just so you know, sometimes school rings, and then when school rings, and I was like, no, I can get it. Like I'm relatively intelligent. I can understand how this would work, even though I don't have little kiddlywinks. But yeah, there would be that little bit of a uncomfortableness just because I didn't have them. That's probably the only thing that sticks out for me. Yeah.
Did you ever feel like you were really good at asserting your boundaries and when you need to leave? Do you feel like people above you or around you ever felt like it was a less legitimate reason to do so?
And look, maybe, I really think that like parenting has this built-in language, right? Like it's kind of like school pickups, sick kid, parent-teacher interviews, and everyone understands those words instantly and rarely questions them. Like it's that's it, But things I think like aging parent or training for a marathon even, or, mental health, or just simply protecting my own time, it doesn't have the same shorthand. Like there's kind of a justification that is needed where parenting often just doesn't need the justification.
Yes.
Like even the way you and I sort of responded to it, like, no, sure, go. Like you almost cut them off. It's like you just said kid, go.
Go.
But I think there's and obviously because there's a lot of parents out there, right? So there's a lot of people going through the same thing. So it's not uncommon. It's not unique. Everyone is doing it, but not everyone. Like there is the minority of people. And I think there is a little bit of a culture that's been created where I have to leave for my kid and it becomes very automatic. It's unquestionable. It's like them setting a boundary, but I have to leave for me is sometimes treated as optional. Like it's negotiable. Like it can even come across as a little bit like, all right, Missy Moo, like you don't have anyone that you're running off to, but you have to leave for you, do you? So I think it can come across a little bit selfish. Like what are you rushing home to when other people have kids and you don't? So I think there's that there might be that feeling, but I don't think it ever sort of stopped me from saying I got to go.
Yes. And I was just reflecting on that. You and I are both pretty strong in our fortitude. And so I think for us, maybe easier. I was even thinking back, Liam was in the military for a long time. He spent a lot of time away from home. And so I was like, I can work later when he's not here. Totally fine. Yeah. And when he's back, no, mate, I want to be home when my husband's home so I've got that time with him because I might see him literally 3 months out of 12, So in that 3 months, I'm going to be leaving a bit earlier. Or I might take a Friday off. And I think, yes, we have quite strong fortitude, but I can imagine how for other people it might feel like they can't stand their ground in that way. But I do think it's our responsibility as individuals to still try and do that if that's what we want.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Do you think, I'd love to talk about burnout because it's obviously something that a lot of people talk about. Do you think that people assume that because we don't have kids that there's no way that we could ever be overwhelmed, overworked or burnt out?
Yeah, I actually do. I think that, and people, the way you said it just cracked me up. But I actually think, like, people don't say this, but I do think that people feel it's harder for mothers to work than it is for people who don't have kids and who work. And I feel like, again, mothers might be listening to this going, yeah, no, shh, right?
Yeah.
Still, like as if like that, of course that is going to be harder. And they might even be thinking that life is so easy for child-free people. And it's like our friends who have 4 kids, like they would look at our life and be like, how divine. Like life is so simple for you guys in the morning before work and all that sort of stuff. So you should see my house in the morning before work with all my kids. And I'm like, no, thank you. It sounds lovely though. But I definitely think that there is this assumption that life is spacious and zero stress if you don't have kids, for sure. But I think you and I both know, with definitely the teams that we work with, the people that we worked with over the years, is that burnout does not discriminate.
Yeah.
Burnout doesn't check your relationship status or whether there's like small humans waiting for you at home before it decides that you're going to be completely exhausted. It actually comes from being overcommitted, undersupported, never switching off, constantly performing, constantly being available. And none of that actually requires children to exist in your home or not. I have had, and I know you have as well, but like seasons of burnout that had nothing to do with school runs and everything to do with saying yes too much, running my own business and never quite knowing where to draw the line between my work and my worth and all that sort of stuff. So I think that the mistake maybe isn't believing that it's harder for parents, because it absolutely sounds like it would be harder. But the mistake is actually assuming that the absence of children means the absence of pressure. I think that's really important. Like burnout finds you, like it will find you regardless of what your mornings look like. And I think it just shows up really differently, for sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I think not having kids doesn't mean that you don't have stressors and pressure and overwork and overwhelm in your life. If I think back to my really severe burnout, I'd had a miscarriage, then the Lismore floods hit, we had customers lose everything, and then Liam was really sick. And it's just that constant working while not dealing with it until your body says, hey, stop. And so I think just because of kids or no kids, there are life circumstances and work circumstances that contribute to burnout regardless. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Do you think there are any hidden wellbeing challenges of not having kids?
I think maybe one of them, I sort of feel like I've touched on it, but the assumption that we have it easy. And I think this actually creates its own pressure, Ange, because if everyone is actually assuming that your life is spacious and calm, you don't actually feel like you have permission to be anything other than that. Like you don't feel like you have a right to be tired. You don't feel like you have a right to be overwhelmed, or even if you're struggling. Like there's almost like this invisible expectation that you should be thriving because you have all this extra time. And when you're not, you almost feel guilty admitting it. And I've absolutely had conversations with friends like that where I know that they've got little bubbies and they're absolutely exhausted. And so then I have to suck it up. I feel like I have to suck it up, where it's like, oh, I know that I've got a lot going on, but nowhere near as much as what you have, like you just feel like you don't have this right to, I don't know, just be, really, which is, again, why when you and I are friends and we can just go, that was a hard week, or that was full, like we just can be completely honest because we can. But I think that there's also one of the things that there's like this assumption that your time maybe isn't as valuable or as protected. Like, and I've found this in the past that like plans can get moved around a lot more easily because like why can't it? Like Candice doesn't have all that stuff to jiggle around like we do. We've got all these like school commitments or kindy commitments, and so that can kind of be done. But I think like mainly it's just that in terms of well-being is that you maybe don't just get asked how you're doing as much. You actually mentioned it as well before, Ange, like you do check in with your friends. And I'm not saying that because we don't have children, we're absolutely perfect and amazing human beings. That's not what it is at all. But nobody checks really on the well-being of a child-free person the way that you check in on a parent.
Yes.
Like there's actually, I don't know, it's like there's no language for it. Like there's no obvious markers. Like I think again about my friends who have just had babies, and it's like, how are you coping? Like how are you sleeping? Like are you actually okay? Because you genuinely want to be able to check, and there's a lot of that is sort of articulated really easily and really beautifully, and then they can respond and tell you exactly how they're going, but it doesn't really go the other way. It's sort of what comes out of their mouth is, how's business? What have you been up to lately? What exciting thing have you been doing? And then you feel like you have to tell them the exciting thing and how great business is, as opposed to like, I'm really stressed, or I've just got a lot going on, or I didn't earn very much last month, but you don't feel like you kind of get asked in the same way. And I think, yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge for me. Do you
And
find?
yes, and I think from if I link it to well-being, I think it creates a sense of loneliness in
Yeah.
not feeling seen or understood.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I would describe it, is like I don't, by very small handful of people who I adore, do I feel really truly seen and understood. And I think for me, I don't know whether this is child free or not, or maybe it's just me and my personality, is that people assume that I'm very strong, which I am. I'm extremely strong and resilient just because of the, the way I was brought up and all of that sort of stuff. And I have a pretty good sense of perspective because I don't know what Liam did for work and all of that sort of thing. But I think subsequently it often means I'm not checked in upon as much. And I think that became really apparent to me when my dad died. And I think, don't get me wrong, some people were absolutely so beautiful and phenomenal. But then I think because, you go back to work and you do all of that stuff, it felt a little like lonely, if that makes sense sometimes. Yeah. And it's almost because there isn't that language and that normality of checking in on seasons and sleep and, coping. And it does go back to, oh God, I saw you overseas. How fun. What was that? Or, the sort of, and of course it is, like, don't get me wrong, there's loads of fun stuff, but it can come back to being a little more surface level. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually think there was something that I read, and it pops up quite a bit on socials, where it's like always check in on your strong friends. And I actually thought that was really good because it's yeah, they're strong. Yes, they're traveling. Yes, they're having a great time. However, they are also still human.
Yeah.
They're still human. And you are so good at it. Like, you do it with me. Like, if I've told you that I've had a real rocky day, the following day you're like, I'm just checking in, friend. Like, you are so good at doing that. And I think that it would be so easy to like check my socials and be like, oh, Candice is good again. Look at her dancing in the kitchen. She's all good. But you want to be able to, keep checking in on people, whether they've got little humans to look after or if they're looking after themselves, because it's hard being a human. It's hard.
Yeah, it's just human. Like, it's human experience, isn't it? Regardless of being a parent or not.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt the need to justify your life choice of not having kids? Because I feel like, this is my perception, might not be everyone's, rarely do we ask someone, oh, why'd you decide to have kids? But often we're asked, why don't you want kids?
Don't you think that's so funny though? Like, actually, like when you really think about it, like no one says, so we're trying for a kid, and no one goes, why? Like, why? Why are you doing that? Like, never. It actually blows my mind. But if you do say that, you've decided that you're not going to have kids, it can be not an interrogation. That sounds a little bit aggressive, but it can be this real, like, why would you do that? And I don't think men get asked as much, Ange, but women definitely do get asked. And I definitely remember in the early days of being married, and people would ask, like, if I had any kids, So it was like, oh, I'm married, and I obviously talk about Jason sometimes way too much. It just comes, oh, Jason, blah, 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 always out of my mouth. And people would probably, want to say, like, do you have kids? And I would actually say in the beginning, it was my knee-jerk reaction, and I stopped doing it now, but I would go, no, we don't, but my husband does. He's got 2 older kids. They're great. We spend so much time with them. And they go, oh, that's cool. And then they'd keep talking about kids. And I started to realize that I was doing this all the time. So people would ask, and I would say, no, we don't, but my husband does. And it was the same line all the time. And I realized that I was saying it because people looked uncomfortable, or people didn't know how to respond. And so I just decided, I was talking to my friend about it, and I said, I don't like that I do this. I don't like that I'm, saying something that isn't me, that's just weird. And so I stopped it. So when people would just sort of say, do you have kids? I would literally just say, no, I love my life. And they'd still look at you like you've got 2 heads. But I think in answer to your question, I always felt like I did have to justify it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I do anymore, maybe because I'm like 40 years young now, and it's done. Like, it's not an option that I would ever consider anymore. I know people do, and people have bubbies a lot later in life, but it's definitely not something that I'm going to do. Maybe just because I'm older and I feel stronger in all of my ways that I'm living my life.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely felt like I had to, but mainly to make other people feel comfortable because it felt a bit like that's not what they were expecting to come out of my mouth.
I am not that I never felt like I had to justify it, but I did feel judged by it, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable saying just no and leave space for discomfort for people to just be like, oh. And then there's sort of that like they physically like move backwards. But I did often get, you're young, you'll change your mind.
Oh,
And that's what I would always
worst.
get. And I'm like, okay, sure. Like,
That's the worst, isn't it?
yeah. And I don't get it now because I'm 40. So everyone's like, you're not changing your mind now.
Yeah. But it's a very personal question, isn't it? Because it's like,
Yes.
even it took you and I a little while to actually talk about why. Like in the beginning, we knew that we both didn't have kids, but it came up very quickly because it just does in conversation. But who knows why people haven't had kids, and I've got a lot of friends who haven't had kids and some of the stories are really sad.
Yes.
And, like it's not just how, for myself, really, if I just look at it where it's like I've never wanted them, never tried for them, full stop, the end is my story. But some people have really full on stories. So to just feel that can be your first question, it can be a lot for a lot of people. I think people need to be aware of that too.
I agree. And I think back to when we were trying, when people would be like, do you have kids? It's very hurtful and upsetting, even the assumption. And so I think that's also why we probably didn't touch on it for a time, because there's a level of respect about being like the person will share why they don't have kids if they want to and when they want to. And so I often just say, oh, tell me about your family. Like it could be you and your cat. You will never hear the question come out of my mouth, do you have kids? Because you just never know what people have been through and where they're at.
Yeah.
Speaking of people saying you'll change your mind, what's the most unhinged thing someone's ever said to you when you've told them you don't have kids?
Do you have one? Do you actually have one in your head?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Do you want me to say it? I'll tell you while you're thinking.
Yeah.
So I've had, who's going to look after you when you get old?
Oh, yeah. Who's going to wipe your bum? Yeah.
Yeah, I am really crass with that because I think it's such a rude thing to say. So I'm like, all the money I don't spend raising kids. Just because I think, like, what an unhinged thing to say. Also, my nan lived with me my whole life and she was in a nursing home for the last 3 months of her life. She was 98. And let me tell you, we went into that nursing home every single day between us, all of us as family. So she had someone visit every day. And there were people who didn't even get a visit once a year. Mm-hmm. So if you're having kids to look after you when you're old, like that is not a strategy. Yeah. I've also been told you'll never know what true love is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a lovely one, isn't it? Like that's lovely. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I really love my husband and that's love by choice,
Yeah.
like you don't have to stay with that person, like that's a choice. Once you have a kid, you have to kind of keep them. Yeah. So yeah, I've had that. And I'm like, also, you haven't seen the way my dog reacts to me when I walk in the house every day. Okay.
That is love. That's is absolute
bloody love. That is unconditional obsession. Maybe because we feed her and walk her, but who cares?
That's not the point. I actually think that's really funny about the whole like who will look after you when you're older, because that comes up a lot, where it's like, oh, I'm just so glad that I won't be on my own and all this. And look, I don't know if my brother would ever listen to this. I love my brother, but there is no way he is going to be at the end looking after mum and dad. Like that is just, unless he changes and turns into a very different person, that's not his thing. So they have
brother
created,
too.
yeah.
Same.
So they've created this human. If they didn't have a daughter, they'd be stuffed.
Yep.
So there's no guarantee on any, and I say that quite a lot, like how it's such a gamble to have children. Like you never know if you're going to get a good one. You know what I mean? Like they're not all good. Look at the world out there. I think one of the things that, as you were talking, that really made me get shocked, like I have a lot of people say why, which I always found odd, like again, like we were saying, if you say that you're having kids, people don't say why. But if you say that no, I don't have any kids, and they go, oh, why? And they look really sad. But I think the other one that always came up was, and I've had this a few times, where it's like, oh, that's such a shame. You'd be such a great mum.
How do you know?
Like, what? Really? Like, have you seen how I am? Like, I can't look after plants, cannot look after plants. So I don't know how that would be a good thing?
I have gotten that before as well. And I just think,
Mm.
well, you've never seen me as a mum. I'm actually quite impatient. And
Yeah.
I really need quiet. So I'm not
I
sure if I
know.
would be.
But
I
don't
don't
you
know.
think about like days and this is going to be funny for mums listening as well, but like when you've got a headache or when you're just
Far
not
out.
feeling 100%. And I just think there is no way. I'm barely looking after myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I look at that and I think I am in awe of mums who
Oh.
are doing that. And thank you, mums out there, for raising the next generation of people who will be the
Thank you.
support workers who care for us when we're old. I appreciate that, but I mean it with all sincerity. Like, I do feel like really appreciative of all of the mums out there, and obviously
Totally.
don't know what it's like, but I could not imagine coming home from a big day of running workshops where I come home and I'm like a mute, and I couldn't imagine then having a small human also then needing all of my attention. So like absolute kudos. I honestly don't know how they do it.
I really don't. I actually said that in my book when I was thanking my mum in the acknowledgements at the end. I was like, thank you so much for making the decision that there is no way I would ever make that decision. You know, it's a big deal, right? But yeah, it's a big, when I look after my niece, those 2 nights, Ange, I am so excited to return her to my brother. And my husband likes to say, you act like you're returning a rental car. I'm like, I know, it sounds like it, but I just cannot wait to hand the keys back, you know, like, and I'll see her in another couple of weeks. Oh God, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, even when you know, if I hang out with friends with kids and things like that, like, and I think, you know, because Liam and I don't know if we have like a young energy, like we're quite, and we've also got the energy because we're not with the kids all the time, you know. So
we
like
sleep. I know, sleep. Great thing.
we're like the king and queen of fun, you know, like Liam's, and because Liam's a big guy, he's like throwing the freaking kids in the air. He's like my freaking shoulder, ow. And I'm like, you're 40, doll. You need to take it easy. But we come back from that and we literally sit on the couch like this and we're like,
don't talk. Don't talk. I know.
We just like take a breath, put the telly on, and we're just like, whoa, that was a lot. You know,
that's enough for a couple of weeks.
Quite literally, I just don't know. So no, I am in awe of all of the parents out there. I have to say, for sure.
Yeah.
We talk about trade-offs a lot, and I think every life choice comes with trade-offs. When you look at your life today, Candice, what do you think you've gained from the decision of not to have kids, and what do you think you've consciously given up?
I think, like I said before, I've definitely gained space, like real tangible space for myself, for my marriage, for the things that I want to build. You know, I've been able to say yes to opportunities with very little notice, which I'm so grateful for. Like it's pinched even if it is, to be honest, like not even work opportunities, even if it is friends who are like, hey, I'm available now, are you? And I get to kind of go, yeah, I am. Not checking in on anything, you know, really making sure, I guess, putting my energy into things that I absolutely just love, even my writing. And I talk to people who are busting to write a book who have children at home. And I can't even imagine what that process would be like with kids. Like the luxury that I have given myself to be able to do these things and be really protective of my time without having to compete with anything else, you know? So I think that that's definitely something that I've gained. I think what I've consciously given up is a little bit harder to put into words, but let me kind of try. I think it's not regret. Like I want to be really clear about that, but I have given up a kind of experience in life, right? Like watching a human grow that I created, you know, or the identity that comes with being someone's parent, or, you know, I think about like certain conversations or certain communities or certain milestones that I will just absolutely never have, you know? So I think that that's something that I've definitely given up, but I don't think I've given up a worse life at all. Like I don't look at it like that. I have just given myself a life that I really wanted to live. And I really, like, as I made that decision, like I said to you in the beginning when I did meet Jason, and it was like a real like, oh God, so he's had kids, like I never wanted them, but now I'm probably never going to have them if I stay with this man. So what is the decision that I'm going to make? And really having to think about it potentially a lot more than people who think about it who just have kids, you know, like it was a really big thing that I had to think through. But I made this choice full of awareness and of really looking at what both sides could look like. And like, you know, there can be things that you will gain and there can be things that you will have to give up as a result of any decision that you kind of make. But I
Yes.
think that, there's a lot that I have gained from this, and I love the life that I live, but I'm really honest with realizing that there are just things that I will never experience in life because I haven't had kids.
I think that's so true. And it's so interesting you say that, actually, because I was talking to someone the other day and he was like, Ange, most people won't say this to you, and he's got 3 kids and a step kid. And he said, if I had my time again, I don't know if I'd choose to have kids. He said, I adore my kids and I love my life. But if I had my time again, I don't know if I would choose that. And I was like, wow, first of all, thank you for being so honest, because I don't think people, and just because you say that doesn't mean you don't love your kids in your life, right? It's just like knowing what it's like on this side. Maybe if I had my time again, I'd want to know what it's like on the other side, And so
I almost feel a bit like that, Ange. Like, I sort of just think, if I did it again, would I have? And it's not like that. Like I said, it's like I don't feel like that would be a terrible life. Like I could imagine, and I think it'd be super cute sometimes when I see, because I think Jason and Liam are very similar. Like, he just becomes so popular with the kids, like they just gravitate towards his calm energy, and they look at me like a little bit of a psycho, and they don't want to go near me as much. And I sort of look at him and I think, oh my God, imagine if we were parents. Imagine if we did have a little bubby or 2 together. Like, oh my God, they'd be so cute. Like, I do think about that. And then I just go, actually, I really love our life.
Yes.
I really love it.
Yeah, it's so true. I think for me, I feel like I've gained the ability, similar to you, to just say, let's do it.
Yeah.
There is no consideration when we book an adventure, when we are like, hey, do you want to go to Time Zone tonight? Hey, do you want to go out? We honestly do that. Hey, should I just
love that, because that's a place where if you've got kids, you go to Time Zone. So of all the places, you're like, as 2 fully grown adults in our 40s, should we go to Time Zone? Cool, let's go.
Well, what's funny? All my friends are like, oh, that is my worst nightmare of place to take the kids. And I'm like, oh, they can come with us because we will actually do all of the activities with them.
And win. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm quite competitive. I don't even care if it's against an 8-year-old.
Yeah, we know.
But the ability just to say yes at very short notice without having to think about really anything else. Yeah. The ability to say, hey, we're going to go hike 400 kilometers in Italy, and we're just going to do it. And so I feel like that's what we have gained. I think also the ability to live in a way that is not thinking about generational wealth, which people in their conscious mind might not be thinking about, but in their subconscious, naturally, you're always thinking about the kids and, all of that sort of thing. So I think that's what's gained. And I think, similarly, surprise, surprise, similar to you, is that, you give up the experience of what it's like to raise a child, and it's not through regret. Similar to you, absolutely love our life. Our life is designed very intentionally to be our own version of a rich life. But you do give up what it's like to raise a child and, see those milestones of thinking, oh my gosh, they've finished school, or they've, those like milestones that you can see the pride in a parent's eyes. And you give that up. That's the trade-off, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 100%. This was fun chatting. I really liked this.
I know. And I think, the sentiment that I really want to leave people with today in listening to this, whether you're a parent or not a parent, is that both life choices are valid. And I think the more that we can be open to and appreciative of everyone's own experience in life, the better it's going to be, because it can sometimes feel, as a child-free person, a little bit like you're judged or left out. And so I think being accepting in equal measure that everyone's choice for their own life path is okay. What would be your closing sentiment?
Yeah, I think that's the same. And I think that it's not just about, people with kids. Make sure you check on your people who don't have kids. Like, I think it goes both ways,
Yes.
I think it's even for us, Ange, as people who have made the decision to have this big, spacious, leave the house whenever you want life. You know that? And like you just have to, have I got my husband? Have I got my keys? Done. You just get to walk out. Like I'm very appreciative of that. But it is up for us as well to make sure that we're not just, not checking on our friends who have kids because they have other friends with kids who can do that. I think that that's a really important thing to do. But exactly like you said, that we all get to make this choice. And I don't think anyone ever, even if you can have the conversation going, if we did it all again, I might change your mind. That's called being a human. We're allowed to think about these things, but really looking at the life that we have got and really looking at how we can keep making it better and better, or our richest life, like you like to say, which I think is beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me and talking about this with such candor. I hope it's received well and with the intent that it is being delivered, and that is that with a lot of love and respect for everyone's life choices and just sharing our own perspectives.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Ange Davis. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.